Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Good evening, everyone. So today we are going to continue our Patisambhida Magga, part 2 Patisambhida class. Last week we discussed, we had a overall look at the Patisambhida jnanas and briefly explain what they are, the 4 types of Patisambhida jnanas, and also we classified them based on the things that they know, objects that they know. So today our plan is to go into depths and discuss about them with some various aspects so that we can deepen our knowledge and understanding about the Patisambhida jnanas. So I have shared a handout in the WhatsApp group, and it will be shared in the room and also in the Viber groups. So the handout is given as miscellaneous information about Patisambhida. So there are some miscellaneous things that we should know about the Patisambhida jnanas. So the few points that I will be discussing, there are a few topics. The types of how one who attains the Patisambhida, jnana, that is first thing that we should know. Then types of Patisambhida jnana, and the moment of attainment, going into variation, and then purification. So these are the 5 points, highlight points, topics that I will be discussing. First is who attains Patisambhida? Who attains? Right? Who attains Patisambhida jnana? That is the first topic. Who attains the Patisambhida jnana? Then types of Patisambhida jnanas. Types of Patisambhida jnanas. There are 2 types actually. 2 types doesn't mean the four varieties of Patisambhida. That's quite different. 2 types are, there are 2 fundamentally 2 different sects of Patisambhida jnanas. Then we have moment of attainment, adhigama. Moment of attainment. That is, then when does it go? Then the moment of attainment, going into variation. Going into variation. How they become, they get varieties. They go into varieties. Then number 5 is purification. Purification. I may not be able to cover all the topics, but we can extend it to the next week as well. So we will be discussing them one by one. Who attains Patisambhida jnanas? According to Theravada teachings, only a noble being attains Patisambhida jnana. Regardless or despite the erudition of a Putujjana person or his development in Vipassana jnanas, still cannot attain Patisambhida jnana. For example, if we give an extreme example for this, think about a person who has memorized the entire teachings of the Buddha and who is capable of analyzing them, explaining them very detailedly, in depth. At the same time, who has reached the level of Sankhara Upekka jnana, the highest in the Vipassana path. And also who has attained all the 5 abhiññanas. Now think about such a person who has covered the entire spectrum of spirituality according to our sasana. Surely such a person has a very good established virtue. Most probably he will be a monk if he had reached all these levels. So a person with adhisila, with very high level of virtue and a very high level of concentration, which has led him to attain abhiññanas, and also which has reached the peaks of vipassana, reaching the Sankhara Upekka jnana, and in studies, who had studied, memorized, and who is capable in explaining all the Dhamma points in very detail. Even of such a person, who is now, such a person is very rare to be found actually in the Putujjana level. possible. Such a person is possible. So technically possible. So even in such a person, the wisdom cannot be classified or named as Patisambhida. Patisambhida jnana is only attained by a noble being. That is one of the most fundamental, significant fundamentals in our tradition. Then that person, then also another point is, there is no living noble being who does not attain Patisambhida jnanas. That's another point. There is no noble being who does not attain Patisambhida jnanas. So then we come into another sect saying there are only few noble beings whose Patisambhida jnanas has gone into the varieties. They have gone into verification, like variation, like they have become powerful jnanas and can be classified into 4 groups. So there are basic Patisambhida jnanas and the advanced Patisambhida jnanas, if we tell in simple terms. The advanced, stronger ones and the basic ones. Every noble being possesses the basic level of Patisambhida jnana. There is no noble being who does not possess the Patisambhida jnanas. But it's not that the Patisambhida jnanas of all beings goes into that level of variation. So that's the first thing that we should know. So a Putujjana being, if I read the handout, yes, Putujjana being can never attain Patisambhida jnana regardless of his or her great erudition in Dhamma and development in Vipassana. It is important to know the following facts about Patisambhida jnana. A Putujjana being can never attain Patisambhida jnana regardless of his or her great erudition in Dhamma and development in Vipassana. And also we can add the concentration, sila and so forth. All these are helpful to the wisdom. Only noble beings attain Patisambhida jnana. Very important fundamental. There is no noble, another very important point is there is no noble being who does not possess the wisdom of Patisambhida. So Patisambhida is always attained, every noble being possesses this wisdom. Then why it is so special? Therefore possessing Patisambhida jnana is a sign of nobility in our sasana. If someone says that I have Patisambhida jnanas, it indicates, implicitly is saying that he has become a noble being. Right? He has become a noble being. Then types of Patisambhida jnana. There are mainly 2 types of Patisambhida jnanas. We call them Suddhika-patisambhidā. Suddhika. Then Bhedapattha. Pabhedapattha. Yeah, Bhedapattha. Sorry. Bhedapattha. Bhedapattha, that things, the wisdom which has gone into the variation. Right? So now Suddhika-patisambhidā. Suddhika-patisambhidā is the wisdom that is attained by all the noble beings. Suddhika-patisambhidā jnana. This is mainly about the wisdom on 4 noble truths. Now wisdom on 4 noble truths. So there is no noble being who has not penetrated the 4 noble truths, right? So penetration here means that he has removed the ignorance that conceals the 4 noble truths from being understood. So as long as the latent tendency of ignorance is present in our mind, we will never be able to understand the 4 noble truths in depth. In a Sotapanna even there is some level of latent moha, ignorance, but he would not he has already seen the 4 noble, understood the 4 noble truths to some extent. Noble being Arahant has completely understood the 4 noble truths. So by removing the obstacles or removing the ignorance which covers the 4 noble truths, a person would, a noble being would attain the Patisambhida jnanas. And that is those are the Suddhika-patisambhidā jnana. They don't go into variation. That's the point here. They don't go into variation as the other, the matured Patisambhida jnanas. But even that level of Patisambhida jnana is again explained as 4-fold. one could have easily said that it's just the wisdom of understanding noble truths, but it has been explained as fourfold in the Patisambhida Magga Pakarana. In Patisambhida Magga, we find Patisambhida Jnana in two places. Suddhika-patisambhidā, Bheda-patta-patisambhidā. Bheda-patta is the level the matured one, which owing to which a noble being is called to have attained Patisambhida Jnana. Normally, we don't say that every noble being has attained Patisambhida Jnana, then we are referring to that Bheda-patta level. But in the basic level, there is no noble being who is without Patisambhida Jnana. Then that Patisambhida Jnana, even though it doesn't have variations as the matured one, it is still fourfold, has been explained as fourfold based on their object. So how to understand that? Now Suddhika-patisambhidā Jnana knows the Four Noble Truths. Four Noble Truths. Some things related to Four Noble Truths. Rather than saying directly knowledge about the Four Noble Truths, things that are related to Four Noble Truths. So how do we, it's not that the four types of Patisambhida are about the Four Noble Truths. It's not that because Noble Truths are fourfold, the Patisambhida, the wisdom about the Noble Truths became fourfold. No, that's not how it is explained. Now, still the names are given similar to the matured ones. Attha-patisambhidā, Dhamma-patisambhidā, Niruktti-patisambhidā and Patibhāna-patisambhidā. So the names are the same, but their object has to be explained as it was explained for the matured ones. So it's not that each Patisambhida is focusing on one noble truth. No. Attha-patisambhidā in the Suddhika level, Attha-patisambhidā focuses on dukkha, the noble truth of suffering, and nirodha. Because if you remember last time, we said atta is the knowledge or the wisdom about the effect. There are three types. There are three types of effects. Effect that is produced by a cause, and the effect or the place where one attains with the help of some practice, and also the meaning that is understood due to some science or due to a language. So these are the three types of effects that we see in our tradition. So knowing the suffering dukkha and knowing nirodha means the nibbana. Knowing the suffering and knowing the dukkha is Attha-patisambhidā. Then Dhamma-patisambhidā is knowing the cause. So it includes samudaya. Samudaya is the cause of suffering. Suffering arises due to samudaya. Then Magga. Magga is the cause for the attainment of Nibbana. It's not the attainment of Nirodha. It's not the cause of Nirodha. We attain Nirodha with the help of Magga. This is called Sampapaka Hetupala. The thing which helps us to reach somewhere is called the cause, and the place where one reaches is called the effect or the phala. Samudaya and Magga. Then Niruktti-patisambhidā means understanding the words that are used to express these Four Noble Truths, the Pali words. Actually, it knows the sound that is uttered while speaking. So when we come to the Patisambhida Jnanas to discuss them in detail, we'll talk about this, how Niruktti-patisambhidā has been explained. For some it may seem like something little bit strange, but we have to understand how it is being explained in the tradition. Anyway, according to tradition, Niruktti-patisambhidā has the object of the sound, while we utter the words of Pali related to things that are being said in Dhamma. Now in these days we can also include the color while we are reading letters written in Pali. Anyway, so Niruktti-patisambhidā is about the sound which is uttered to express these terminologies, referring to these noble truths, and it has to be Pali words, the words uttered in Pali. Then Patibhāna-patisambhidā is the wisdom. Now these are three wisdoms, right? Wisdom is threefold based on their object, and now knowing about these three wisdoms is the Patibhāna-patisambhidā. Knowing about these three wisdoms is the Patibhāna-patisambhidā. So this is how Suddhika-patisambhidā, the basic level of Patisambhidā jnana, has become fourfold based on the things that it has understood. Even though Patisambhidā jnana is twofold, Suddhika-patisambhidā jnana, even though every noble being attains Patisambhidā jnana, it does not go into variation in all of them. This is the wisdom of knowledge, this is the wisdom of knowing the noble truths, the basic level. There is no variety in them in terms of being various knowledges. The Dhamma book says that they are not four types of life. They don't go into variation because of the wisdom. They go into variation because of what they understand. However, the Patisambhidā jnana, which penetrates those noble truths, become fourfold. Following is how it happens. The wisdom that has dukkha and nirodha as the object is called Attha-patisambhidā. Then the wisdom that has samudaya and magga, cause of suffering, samudaya, magga is the path, noble path. I hope everyone knows these terms. As the object, magga as the object is called the Dhamma-patisambhidā. The wisdom that has the sound with which those noble truths are being expounded as the object is called the Niruktti-patisambhidā jnana. Personally, I prefer to get Niruktti-patisambhidā even extending to any language, but according to Theravada tradition, it is confined to Pali. I didn't include it actually. The wisdom that has aforesaid three wisdoms as the object is the Patibhāna-patisambhidā. If he is that like metacognition, he is able to understand about the wisdom. That is Patibhāna-patisambhidā. Then we come to the Bhedapatta-patisambhidā. Bhedapatta means the thing which has gone into varieties. This is the mature stage. The ones who possess these Patisambhidā jnanas are said to be Patisambhidā jnana labhi arahants. If someone is wishing to reach the supreme level, like higher level of wisdom while becoming a noble being, and to possess Patisambhidā jnana, we are talking about this Bhedapatta one, not the Suddhika one. Suddhika one is naturally obtained when you become a noble being. There is no noble being without Suddhika-patisambhidā jnanas. So we are talking about, now in most of the cases when we in literature, because since every noble being possesses Patisambhidā jnana, you cannot, it's useless to use it as an adjectival clause. You tell me there's no much use in it because everyone possesses that. But the Bhedapatta one is the mature one which distinguishes others, a special noble being from the others. So when we say a person is a Patisambhidā labhi or a Patisambhidā arahant in short terms, we are referring to a person who has attained, whose wisdom, whose Patisambhidā has gone into this variation which we call Bhedapatta level, right? Bhedapatta level. And we'll next we are going to discuss about how this Bhedapatta, how the wisdom goes into that matured level, and what are the requirements for this wisdom to be purified. So that is very important. Bhedapatta-patisambhidā jnana of some special noble beings, the Patisambhidā jnana goes into variation due to few reasons. We will be talking about them soon. Those Patisambhidā jnanas which are capable in considering, you remember we talked that Patisambhidā jnana has three functions: consideration, sallakkhana, making it clear, the object vibhavana, and distinguishing it or defining it, vavatthana. So defining it, distinctly knowing that this is this, because wisdom makes it clear, knows it distinctly, means knowing it separate from others, and also he is capable of considering it deeply. Yeah, so Patisambhidā jnanas have these functions, considering about something, having a clear picture or view or a clear understanding about it, and then knowing it distinctly. Knowing distinctly means one is capable of knowing things having separated from others. It is capable of, now for example, a simple example of distinct cognition like understanding is even René Descartes had talked about this. Distinctly knowing means, now when we think about a square, we attend to the squareness of the square, and it's very clear to us when we understand a square. If someone draws a circular shape, and we are capable of distinguishing, saying that this is not a square, because if we know the definition of square very well, and if we can have a clear picture or a clear understanding about it, or a clear vision about it, there's a slight difference in understanding and vision. But if we can understand it clearly, for instance, and if someone shows us a circular shape, and we are clearly able to distinguish and say, no, this is not the square. So distinctly knowing, like, this is a function of wisdom in our Theravada tradition. For instance, now if someone knows avijja is the cause of sankhara, and sankhara is the cause of vijnana, so he is capable of knowing it's not vijnana that causes sankharas, it's avijja that is the prominent cause of sankhara. So he is able to distinguish the causes within themselves, within the group. So sanya also has such distinctly knowing quality. It is capable of recognizing something from the others. Now if we meet 5 identical twins, for instance, very rare occasion, 5 identical twins, we'll never be able to, most of us will have struggle to recognize who they are. But normally a mother who was the mother of the 5 identical twins will be able to surely differentiate who they are, because she has a very close association with the children, and her perception about them is very clear, and she is capable of distinguishing, like, who is them, who are they, and which child is whom. So sanya recognizes things having distinguished it from others. Wisdom understands things having distinguished or separated it from others. And consciousness also has this function. Consciousness cognizes or knows things having separated from others. While there is an infinite possibility of knowing many objects, so at least a huge number of possibilities of knowing various objects, and there are plenty of objects that we can know. Out of them, we focus at one at a time. We don't mingle the objects. We just separate one from the lot and take it into our mind. Now this act is called parichijya gahi, knowing or taking the object having separated from others, having delimited the object. So these 3 functions, panya, sanya and chitta, have the distinctly knowing capacity. In my personal opinion, also the wrong view, ditti, also has this function, because when you go into the doctrine, we see clearly the ones who are holding wrong views are capable of distinctly recognizing wrongly, not correctly. Even sanya has both wrong and correct recognition. So in the same way, ditti wrongly, the wrong view wrongly distinguishes and understands. It's a wrong understanding about the objects. For example, he is able to separate the ultimate soul and the minor souls, or the immortal soul from the mortal soul. And even within one life, one is capable of recognizing or denoting or understanding or grasping that vijnana is the self, the remaining are the non-self. So likewise, even ditti also has this distinctly knowing attribute. So in Patisambhida jnanas, 3 functions. And also it is very important to know that vibhavana is making the object clear to the mind, is also a very important function in all the mentalities. Among them, chitta plays the biggest role. It makes the object clear to the mind, so the other mentalities could function upon that. And also wisdom, like the light which lightens the area and makes the object prominent or evident to the eyes, wisdom makes the object clearer. So vibhavana function is there, vavattana function is there, and at the same time sallakkana, obviously consideration is there. So every wisdom has this capacity. There is no wisdom without this capacity. But when it comes to the Bhedapatta level, it seems we can imply that the wisdom, the Patisambhida, basic wisdom of Patisambhida has gone into higher levels and reached the maturity, so it's capable of analyzing and understanding things and differentiating things, the it's capable of knowing the subtle differences and so forth. So that's we call the sharp wisdom, analytical wisdom is there. And normally we translate Patisambhida Jnana as the wisdom of discrimination. Discrimination means he is capable of distinguishing the objects separately and understand them clearly. Because more we are skilled in a certain subject or a certain topic, more the distinct objects will be, if they are actually distinct. But for example, if someone is not skilled in motor mechanics, if he opens the engine of a car, for example myself, if I open the engine of a car, I will just see a group of metal parts, that's all. I have no idea what they are, because that's not my subject, I haven't studied it. So, but for a motor mechanic, he will be able to distinguish. For me, it's just metal pieces. I may not just know few parts, but very, very limited knowledge. So, but for others, for a motor mechanic, he would say even in the slightest differences of these parts, because he is very skilled in this subject. In the same way, a person who has attained the Patisambhida Jnanas is very skilled in the realm of causality, in the realm of noble truths, in the realm of spirituality. What is Sila, what is Samadhi, and how they are interrelated, and from where the path of Samadhi changes into wisdom, and what are the varieties of wisdom. So even that level, that much clarity is there in a person who has reached the Patisambhida Jnana. So when the Patisambhida Jnanas reach this level, the wisdom is capable of understanding things very analytically, right? So of some beings, I'll read it again, of some special noble beings, the Patisambhida Jnana goes into variation due to few reasons. Those Patisambhida Jnanas which are capable in considering, making clear and defining and distinguishing the causes, effects and etc. in detail are called Vedapatta Patisambhida Jnana. This type of Patisambhida Jnana is always Kamavachara. It is said this Jnana is Kamavachara, as it is found only in Mahakusala Chittas and Mahakiriya Chittas. Mahakusala and Mahakiriya Chittas. But when we merge these two both together, the wisdom in the Magga Chitta and Pala Chitta can be called Attha-patisambhidā, because it is cognizing Nibbana as the object. If something is taking Nibbana as the object, if you remember the last week's chart, Nirodha or Nibbana is an effect, not in the sense of being produced or having been produced by something, or had been produced by something. It is because it is the state or a conditioned reality one attains with the help of Magga, or with help of something. So in this regard, Nibbana is termed as an Atta or a Pala in that sense. So since Magga Chittas and Pala Chittas have Nibbana as the object, the wisdom in it is also can be termed as Attha-patisambhidā. Therefore, in Vinaya commentaries, it is clearly mentioned that if someone says that one has attained Patisambhida Jnanas, according to the ancient Maha-Atthakatha, the great commentaries, there is no parajika for a being, but it is an indicator. As I said before, if someone says I am possessing Patisambhida Jnanas, it's a clear indicator that he has been a noble being, but it's not directly saying. He's not directly saying. So because the thing is, Patisambhida Jnanas are mostly mundane. All three Patisambhida Jnanas are always mundane. Niruktti-patisambhidā has to be mundane because it is taking the object of sound. In today's days, I would say it even takes the object of color as far as I see. But anyway, it takes the object of sound, Saddharamana. Then Dhamma-patisambhidā is focusing on causes, and we have 5 types of causes, and so it can only be known with non-lokuttara chitta, because lokuttara chittas have a fixed object, that is nibbana. Then Patibhāna-patisambhidā has wisdom as the object, because it is analyzing or knowing the wisdom. It knows the wisdom. So lokuttara chittas can never have wisdom as the object, though they are associated with a great wisdom. They don't have wisdom as the object. And then what is left is Attha-patisambhidā. Attha-patisambhidā has Attha-patisambhidā. Lokuttara chittas has nibbana as the object, and nibbana is one of the attas. So the wisdom in Magga chitta and Pala chitta become Attha-patisambhidā in that sense. So if someone says that I have attained lokuttara Attha-patisambhidā, it's a saying bordering the parajika. So some commentators say just saying patisambhidā jnanas is enough to relevant to for someone to become parajika. Even sub-commentators have acknowledged that, but since the great commentary refutes that, so we are in the acceptance. It seems like we are in the acceptance that just mere saying of patisambhidā, possessing patisambhidā, one doesn't become parajika. Means if you claim to have falsely claim to have jhanas and maggapalas, the monk is going to lose his status. If the other person understands what he is saying, yes, the monk is going to lose it. It's similar to by having sex, a monk loses his status of monkhood. By stealing something more than a certain value, and killing a human being, including a fetus, and then claiming to possess, falsely claiming to possess jhanas and maggapalas, monk loses his monkhood. But patisambhidā jnanas are attained with the magga, but they are mundane. That's the point here. Only Attha-patisambhidā can be part of Attha-patisambhidā, because other Attha-patisambhidās like seeing the effects, seeing the understanding the meaning of words, these are all mundane chittas. It's done with mundane chittas. If you are unable to grasp what I'm saying, like what falls into Atta and Dhamma, you have to refer to the previous handout that I have given. So there are 5 types of Attas and 5 types of Dhammas, and only Maggapala chittas can take Nibbana out of them, and Nibbana falls into the group of Attas. That's why I was saying this. So this type of Patisambhidā is always Kamavachara, as it is found only in Mahakusala Chittas and Mahakiriya Chittas, as it is explained in the Anutika of the Vibhanga. Every noble being attains Patisambhidā jnanas with their attainment of supramundane attainments. There is no noble being who does not possess Patisambhidā jnanas. There is no one who does not possess. It means everyone has. Then, however, it does not go into variation in all the noble beings. That's the point here. Now we shall learn about the attainment of Patisambhidā jnana, Patisambhidā, and how that wisdom goes into variation. Right? Moment of attainment. Right? So I will not be able to complete the entire handout. We can take it to the next week. The moment of attainment. So when does one attain Patisambhidā jnana? One attains Patisambhidā jnana at the moment of attainment of Magga and Pala. That the same thing happens to the Buddha. When he is attained omniscience, he does it while attaining Arahatta, Magga and Pala. Arahatta, Magga, path and fruition of Arahatta. Arahantaship is completely eradicating all the defilements. The person who has eradicated all the defilements. So he's an Arahant. While becoming an Arahant, the Buddha became omniscience, as we believe. Now, one possesses, attains the Patisambhidā jnanas at the moment of attainment. That is what the Magga and Pala level. So we'll go into a Viti to explain this. Bhavanga Chitta arises, and then Manodvara Vajjana, Parikamma, Upachara, Anuloma. Don't get confused if you are not studied Abhidhamma. These are just chittas arising, focusing on sankharas. Then there's a chitta called Gotrabhu, which is also a Javana chitta, which takes Nibbana as the object. They take sankharas as object. Sankhara are the mundane realities. They contemplate them as either as anicca, dukkha or anatta. Then the Magga chitta arises. This is the chitta that eradicates the defilements, MG. Then it will be followed by 2 Pala chittas. Then the mind stream falls back into the Bhavanga. mind stream falls back into the bhavanga. So this is the place where Magga, this is the place that defilements are eradicated. Defilements are eradicated. So what is the obstacle to now? Patisambhida jnana is the wisdom. What is the obstruction to wisdom? What is opposite of wisdom? That is ignorance. That is ignorance. In some places, wrong view has been given. What is the factor against wisdom? But wrong view can be eradicated by the Sotapatti Magga. Still, the person is not complete in wisdom. So therefore, always keep it in mind. The real fact, the real opposer of wisdom is the ignorance. And sometimes Micha Ditti can be an obstacle, like direct, like very we can see very clear contrasting features in Ditti and also in Vichikiccha. Vichikiccha, Ditti and Moha are very much opposed to the wisdom, because Vichikiccha, he has no clarity and no decision. It's also opposite of Adhimokka and also opposite of faith. But at the same time, when Vichikiccha is there, the one is not capable of coming into a conclusion, especially about the deep factors of the world, of the life, and which obviously need the support of wisdom. And then wrong view, having a wrong ideology, which is against the function of wisdom, and ignorance, which covers the wisdom from seeing the truth. So what Magga does is, it eradicates the ignorance and the remaining defilements. And facilitates the arising facilitates the ground or the background for the wisdom to arise. So this is the eradication. Now at the moment of Pala, ignorance has been eradicated. Now in the Sotapatti level, one is not eradicating the entire spectrum of ignorance, but to some extent it will be eradicated, so noble truths will be clear. Now by attaining Magga, he is removing the obstacles to the wisdom. Now this is also a type of penetration or understanding. Now we have to know there are two types of knowing or understanding as explained in Theravada teachings. One is understanding something or knowing something by cognizing it. Cognition means being having knowledge or having information or seeing the traits of something. The cognition, like knowing, like understanding these things. So by knowing an object, wisdom, by looking at an object or taking an object, the wisdom understands about it. That is a function. That is the function, and it is also helpful to get rid of the ignorance that we have. But what is the real purpose of knowing these things? Why, for example, take the spiritual practice, for example. Why do we keep on looking at the sankharas and trying to understand the true natures of the life, body, mind, matter and all this? Because we need to get rid of the ignorance that has been prevailing in us throughout the entire samsara, which had prevented us from attaining the liberation. So the purpose of knowing things deeply is to get rid of the ignorance. So knowing things that with direct experience or cognizing them is one aspect of wisdom, and the second aspect, the most important and the final objective of wisdom, producing wisdom, is to eradicate the ignorance which conceals this wisdom, which prevents the wisdom from understanding the noble truths or the realities. So therefore, at the moment of Magga, it it eradicates the obstacle to the wisdom. It eradicates the obstacle to the wisdom, and that is also a sort of understanding. That is the moment he attains the Patisambhida jnanas. Then at the moment of Pala, he is said to have attained. Why is that? The obstacles are gone. So wisdom knows the objects, understands the object. That is the one function of Patisambhida jnanas. And what happens at the moment of attainment is it removes the obstacles completely, or completely meaning it eradicates the obstacles, and there is no hindrance anymore for the wisdom to arise, and understanding is complete. It's not because the hindrance for wisdom is removed, the real understanding is removal of wisdom, ignorance. That is the real understanding. That is the actual understanding that we are longing for, we are looking for. That's what happens at the moment of Magga, eradicating the wisdom which conceals the Four Noble Truths. So here it eradicates the ignorance which conceals the Four Noble Truths. So here the Magga Jnana eradicates the ignorance which covers the cause, effect, understanding their wordings and all this, and also the which hinders the understanding about the wisdoms. So therefore, attainment of Patisambhida jnanas happens at the moment of Magga, and one is said to have attained the Patisambhidas at the arising moment of Pala. So I'll conclude the lecture by reading this. One attains Patisambhida jnanas at the moment of the Lokuttara Magga, and at the moment of the arising of the Pala Chitta, one is said to have attained the Patisambhida jnanas. Ignorance conceals the Atta, Dhamma and so on to the mind. Due to its covering, the wisdom is not capable of knowing the causes, effects and so on accurately. The Lokuttara Maggas arises and eradicates the ignorance which covers true causes, effects, etc. One attains Patisambhida jnanas by eradicating the defilements which are obstacles to them. So that will be the point. So I'll go for the question and Q&A session. So today we discussed who attains Patisambhida jnana, two types of Patisambhida jnanas, and the moment of attainment. So next week we are going to talk about how it goes into variation and what are the causes for its purification. So